How to build your relationships to improve your health, happiness, and well-being. This is the 4th edition of my How to Flourish newsletter and blog. It's available to read on Substack and LinkedIn. The links for those are in the description in this YouTube video. The highlights of this blog are, first, the powerful impact that relationships have on our health, happiness, and well-being. Second, why what's called our social health and social fitness are very important, and effective strategies for building and strengthening our relationships. Research shows that relationships have an incredibly powerful impact on our health, happiness, and well-being. So powerful, in fact, that it's no exaggeration to say that the strength of our relationships is the most significant predictor of our long-term happiness and well-being. The longest study of human life ever conducted is the Harvard study of adult development, which began in 1938. Over the past 87 years, it has tracked hundreds of individuals and their families over their entire lifetimes across 3 generations. It's now studying the descendants of the original participants and is today tracking the lifetimes of over 2,000 people. The study's aim is to find out what makes people flourish, that is, which factors predict a long, healthy, and happy life. It's an extremely rigorous study. Data includes hundreds of measurements, such as blood samples, DNA samples, dental records, and brain scans. Surveys and interviews are regularly conducted with participants and their families, covering thousands of questions. So far, 25 of the deceased participants have even donated their brains to the ongoing research. It has gathered a huge amount of data about which factors are most predictive of our long-term happiness and well-being and help us lead good, long, and healthy lives. The study's key finding is that the greatest predictor of happiness, well-being, and health is the quality of our relationships. The stronger our relationships, the more likely we are to be happy and fulfilled and to live healthier, longer lives. Strong relationships are even better at predicting whether we'll live a happy and long life than our genes, IQ, or social class. In a recent book on the study called The Good Life, the book's authors and the study's current directors, Drs. Robert Waldinger and Mark Schulz, write that, quote, "Good relationships are significant enough that if we had to take all 87 years of the Harvard study and boil it down to a single principle for living, it would be this. Good relationships keep us healthier and happier, period." They also write that, quote, "Relationships seem to be the key to a flourishing life," end quote. Close social relationships have been identified as one of the key predictors of human flourishing. They are included in every major theory of flourishing, such as the theories put forward by positive psychology and the Human Flourishing Program at Harvard. Of all the factors that predict our happiness, well-being, and health, good relationships stand out for their power and consistency in supporting each of these pillars of a good life. And I've linked a conversation I had on our podcast, Flourish FM, with Mark Schulz, Associate Director of the Harvard study, in the blog. Now, the study has found that social connection reduces our risk of depression, diabetes, and heart disease. It increases the likelihood of surviving any year of life by more than 50%. Study participants who were the most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at 80. Relationship satisfaction at age 50 is an even better predictor of health at age 80 than cholesterol levels. Close relationships reduce stress and help us manage stress because they provide us with emotional support. For example, if you've had a long and difficult day but you have someone you can talk to at home or over the phone afterwards, it can help you calm down and relax, regulating your nervous system. Now, many other studies have also shown that good relationships are crucial to our mental and physical health and the longevity of our health span and lifespan. Social connection is even more important for our health than diet or exercise. Meta-analyses have found that exercise decreases our risk of death by 23 to 30% and diet by up to 24%, but a large social network decreases our risk of death by 45%. Good relationships can even help us recover more quickly from injury. Research has shown that the speed at which a married person heals from a wound is correlated with the quality of their marriage. In one experiment, study participants were given a small puncture wound in their arm. Those who reported being in more satisfying and lower conflict marriages healed more quickly than those who reported being in unsatisfying and higher conflict marriages. In her recent book, The Art and Science of Connection, social health expert Cassie Killam describes research showing that people with a strong sense of belonging are 2.6 times more likely to report good or excellent health, but people who lack social support are up to 53% more likely to die from any cause. And I've linked in the blog a podcast interview that we did with Cassie on Flourish FM. Dr. Marisa Franco, one of the world's leading experts on social connection and the author of Platonic, describes research showing that out of 106 factors that influence depression, having someone to confide in is the strongest preventative factor. We also interviewed Marisa for Flourish FM, and I've included a link to that conversation in the blog too. Now, which types of relationships are most good for us? An interesting finding from the Harvard study is that relationships of all kinds benefit us. This includes what are known as our weak tie relationships with our acquaintances, such as with our neighbours, the players in our weekend sports club, and our local baristas. All of these contribute to the sense of community and belonging which support our happiness, well-being, and health. But the most significant relationships are with people we can rely on to support us anytime. The study asks participants the following question: who could you call in the middle of the night if you're sick or scared? Positive Psychology, the scientific study of human flourishing, asks a similar question in its surveys: who could you call any time of day or night if you need help? Having at least one person like this in your life significantly improves your happiness, health, and well-being. Ask yourself this: who would you call in such times? The person you're thinking of now is likely someone with whom you have a very strong relationship. Of all the relationships, nurture these ones the most. Now, we often talk about physical and mental health, and often about physical fitness, but we rarely talk about social health or social fitness. Cassie Killam defines social health as the dimension of well-being that stems from relationships. Robert Waldinger and Mark Schulz, directors of the Harvard study, define social fitness as the ability to engage in healthy and productive personal and professional relationships. Killam argues that we should prioritize our social health as much as our physical and mental health, and Waldinger and Schulz argue that social fitness is, quote, massively important, end quote, as important for our health and well-being, they argue, as physical fitness. Well, how do we go about building our social health and social fitness? Here are 5 strategies that you can implement right away to do precisely that. First, make contact with someone important in your life. Waldinger and Schulz recommend the following exercise based on their research in the Harvard study of adult development. Think of a friend or family member you haven't spoken to in a while. Pick up your phone right now and send them a quick message to say something simple, like, "I was just thinking about you and wanted to check in. How are you?" Small actions like this, Waldinger and Schulz write, can create long-term ripples of well-being. Now, the person that you've texted there, if you've just done so, or I hope you're about to text, will be someone you're grateful to have in your life. Perhaps they've done something kind for you, for which you're thankful. If so, you could go a step further and write them a gratitude letter, which will have profound benefits for the well-being of both of you. And I describe strategies for cultivating gratitude, including the gratitude letter, and why exactly gratitude is so good for our happiness and well-being in another blog, which I've linked in this blog. Okay, second strategy, set connection goals. Cassie Killam recommends that we set connection goals just like we'd make career goals. For example, what is a trip you've always wanted to go on which you could schedule sometime over the next year with a friend, family member, or your partner? What's a hobby a friend has which you've always wanted to try, or a hobby you have which you could invite a friend to do with you? These goals can help us build new relationships as well as strengthen existing ones. Third strategy, talk to a stranger. Here's a simple strategy for building new relationships that has been shown to increase happiness. Simply, strike up conversation with someone new. A study in Chicago asked train and bus commuters during their morning commute to either strike up a conversation with the person next to them, or sit in solitude, or do whatever else they usually do, like listen to music or scroll social media. The people who talked to the people next to them reported having a more pleasant commute and feeling significantly happier during their journey than those who didn't. Other experiments with commuters using buses and taxis and with people sitting in waiting rooms have found similar results. Fourth strategy, establish social routines with your loved ones. Going for lunch or a walk, grabbing coffee, or just having a phone call once a month can make a real difference to building and sustaining relationships. Try turning it into a routine. Coffee on the final Friday, or lunch on the final Sunday of every month, or an annual get-together to go to an event or watch a sports match. And fifth, treat your social fitness like your physical fitness. Improving physical fitness takes regular practice. Social fitness is the same. To create new relationships or to strengthen existing ones, we need to be intentional about building them, and we need to nurture them regularly. For some relationships, it needn't be daily, weekly, or even monthly. Seeing some people in our lives every few months or even once a year can be just the right amount for that kind of relationship. We just need to avoid losing touch altogether. As well-being and relationships expert Dr. Rick Hanson points out in his recent book, Making Great Relationships, thousands of scientific studies have shown that relationships are made rather than given. And just as we can make ourselves more physically fit through exercise, we can do the same to become more socially fit with effective practices such as those 5 I've just described. And we also interviewed Rick for our podcast, Flourish FM, and I've linked a conversation with Rick in the blog. All right, the takeaway from today. Investing time in building your relationships is one of the best investments you can make for improving your happiness, health, and well-being. Try the 5 strategies I've described here for creating new relationships or strengthening existing ones. What impact have you noticed relationships have on your well-being? Have you tried any of the strategies I described here or others for building relationships? I would love to hear about your experiences in the comments or any other thoughts you have about how to build relationships. Thank you for watching or listening.